If you are interested in either sports or academics and are in the northwest province of South Africa, there's only one city established in 1838 that is home to at least 30 different schools and 17 major sports. That would be Potchefstroom, and its residents are always welcome right here in the Doom Room. I'm Alex, and I'm doomed.
Alex has turned the opening of this podcast into a small TED Talk, and that's what I want to play in my tomb. Welcome to the Doom Room. Boom, boom. I'm Justin, and I'm doomed.
I'm Pete.
And we are going to be talking about Season 3, Episode 3 of Doom Patrol called Dead Patrol. But first, I just wanted to address the idea, are they playing a lot of TED Talks in tombs? Is that what they're like? Discovering.
Oh, so popular.
Yeah.
Learning
Never
should
stop
never
learning.
end.
Never
exactly.
stop learning.
He gets it. That's why he drops advice at the end of the pod. Mm-hmm. And that's why, Alex, I think you should really expand your mind, expand your horizons. You think you know everything?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
One thing I do know is the plot of this episode of Doom Patrol. Now, spoiler alert if you haven't watched it for whatever reason, though you probably have. But the Doom Patrol is dead, or at least most of them are dead. Their bodies, after getting killed by not Gargax, but his second in command, Samuelson. That's who it was. Samuelson gets mailed over to Larry, who discovers them packed in crates. He freaks out, wraps them up as mummies, and puts them at the dinner table, as one does. While on the outside, he is dealing with that with the return of Dorothy, as well as the Dead Boy Detective Agency. Classic Vertigo comics characters showing up. The rest of the cast is hanging on meat hooks in the underworld and bonding with significant people from their past, eventually being ushered onto the afterlife, except, of course, the Dead Boy Detective Agency, as well as Larry, and everybody else managed to rescue them and bring them back to life, leading to the cliffhanger at the end where Michelle Gomez's mysterious character finally shows up in Doom Manor as if nothing is wrong. And that's where we end this episode. So lots of stuff going on here, but one thing that I'll throw out to you that I was very surprised about, I spent this entire episode waiting for the dark twist with the afterlife. And I was shocked that it legitimately was like, no, these are your significant others. They're ushering you onto the afterlife. That's it.
It was just nice. It was sort of sweet.
I had a great time with this episode. And at the start of it, Dead Patrol, I was like, don't you fucking bring him back. Don't you dare bring him back.
He's
you keep
coming
Niles
back.
Dead.
He's
keep
coming
Niles
back.
as dead. Okay. I don't want to fucking, so I
thought you
very
meant
happy.
Hitler, the other person we would like to come back to life.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's nice.
Interesting. Your first thought is okay, but anyways, I think.
Well, I guess in your mind, Niles Calder is worse than Hitler. Like Hitler is.
Wow.
I have heard you talk about that a lot. Yeah. You keep your catchphrase is Hitler is better than, and then you say stuff.
And then I say stuff. All right. I just think that I was overall super happy. I thought this is one of my favorites apps so far. I mean, we're only 3 deep, but I'm enjoying this new kind of lighter fun we're having. Yeah,
beep beep. We're 3 deep here on the Doom Room. Is that what you say?
Yeah, beep 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 beep.
Beep beep. We're 3 deep. We just
it's time
stuff,
we changed up. Yeah.
Yeah.
The deep ream. Real quick, I just want to say, it's something I've been thinking for a while, and this episode really solidified it for me. Pete, you are Cliff. And the more I watch Cliff, the more Pete he becomes. I don't know, just this episode, him talking to his dad, I was like, that's how he talks to Alex.
Oh, man.
So I just wanted to see if that's really hitting with you. And it explains why you hate Niles the same way Cliff hates his dad in this scene.
Wow. You just kind of blew my mind with that. But
Exactly.
I definitely I feel seen when Cliff is around. So it's nice for sure. I mean, Cliff's dad is really fucked up in this episode, and we'll get to it, but that was crazy. His happy place is kind of insane what he's doing to those poor flying horses.
They're called Pegasuses, first of all. But Justin, I did want to ask you, because you've been, I think, a little iffy on this season so far. How do you feel 3 episodes in? Pete is 3 deep, knee deep, but are you 3 deep?
Wait, can I
deep,
follow up with that?
Whoa, stop, hold up there.
Can I add on? Can I do a part B to that question?
You're calling an add-on?
Yeah, I'm calling an add-on.
Okay, you
also,
get 3
we
of
should
them
vote
over
on
the
it.
course. Yeah.
Also, how do you feel, since we're 3 deep now, about missing the DC flip? You know what I mean? Like, are you still feeling that kind of, or are you past that?
We're 3. What's up? We're 3 up, is what I say, and I think the season is getting better, and I think it's getting more like your classic Doom Patrol type of episode, like what you said, Alex, about how the Afterlife was just what it is. I thought was great because it has that mix of this is weird and it's sort of uncommented on. It's just like, this is just what it is we're dealing with. And then there are sweet parts that are sentimental and sort of nice, where the characters are becoming better people. There are parts where Larry's just like super depressing to watch do stuff.
Oh man, LT was losing his shit for a lot of this.
Yeah, Larry is scary, and then it ends. There's a lot of jokes, and it ends in sort of a way where you are like, "I see what's happening here. We're moving the story forward." So this is a classic DP.
So what you're saying is you do miss the DC flip, but you enjoy the new logo that they're giving us as well.
I can't honestly, the logo thing, I don't even register. I don't know if I skip it or if I just truly like I'm just settling in, and I'm like, this is why I think it's so crazy that you're just like. Turn on your laptop and you're like, is it gonna be there? It's like Santa Claus for you.
Well, I mean, it seems like, if I was to characterize it, now that we are 3 deep, it seems like Pete thinks it's cheap, but Justin doesn't make a peep.
Yeah, yep. I would also just like to say, if you turned on a Marvel show and they didn't do the Marvel flip, you would kind of maybe be like, hey, what the fuck? I mean, we got the DC
I would
look
not
inside,
say what the fuck,
and then then we don't have it anymore.
Rip the flip. I don't give a pip.
All right. All right, man. And we know Pip don't slip, so.
Yeah, this episode to me just bounce off of what you're saying, Jason, and ignore what Pete is saying. I feel like this is really starting to crisp in a little bit as a season, particularly when we get to the thing with Michelle Gomez's character at the end. That to me, and I guess we'll see how it pans out in the next episode, that to me indicates, okay, here we go. You know, she has been in the background the past 2 episodes. There's been this mystery of who she is. And versus the previous seasons where it really felt like they got to it, whatever the central conflict was. In season 1, that was with, oh my gosh, not Negative Man, Mr. Nobody. Central conflict, Nobody was up front. Season 2, Dorothy was up front. We're sort of playing a little bit of coy with Michelle Gomez's character. So whatever it is, I hope they open it up a little bit in the next episode. And here, I think they just kind of needed to go past this. But at the same time, it really is about the characters moving forward from the stasis that they've been in the past couple of episodes, and honestly most of their lives, with these significant conflicts they have. So I don't think they're ever going to completely go away, but they do make significant psychological steps forward by the end of the episode, and that's really nice to see.
Yeah. Do you want to go through each of the different sort of afterlives they encounter?
Yeah, that sounds great. Why don't we start with Cliff, since Pete is so psyched about that. Pete, what'd you think about Cliff's afterlife with his daddy?
All right. Well, first off, like, the dad's opening line where Cliff is like, hey, is this heaven? He was like, I thought so until you got here. Like, oh, damn. That is some cold shit. That was, oh, man. But yeah, like, the fact that, like, in this heaven, there's still this fucking like asshole shooting. Like, oh man, I couldn't believe his slice of heaven. Like, it was, it was very geared towards that character in a kind of fun, horrible way. But it was kind of crazy. You get to meet Cliff's dad and kind of see where Cliff came from.
What would you hunt in heaven?
I'm not hunting nothing, man. That's not my idea of fun. You know what I mean?
Nice.
Angels. I'd hunt angels.
Oh,
wow. Aggressive.
Yeah.
Just to point of clarity, we did meet Cliff's dad before in a flashback before he was human. I think it was when he was human. I think it was when he was about to have a kid. So there was that brief scene here, and this paralleled that really nicely. But I liked how each of the characters, and this is talking more broadly, but I think specifically with Cliff, it's all about them moving past this thing that has been holding them back. And here it's ultimately being like, F my dad. He's just doing what he's doing. I need to do what I'm doing. I need to move forward with my life and stop trying to live up to him. And I thought that was a really nice way of dealing with it. And it contrasts with what everybody else is going through.
Also, there was an interesting moment where like Cliff's dad like stopped being an asshole for like 2 seconds when he heard Clara had a kid. And it was kind of like this thing that kind of like really stopped him, and kind of like you saw like a softer side, which was interesting because it's like one of the huge motivating factors for Cliff, you know, is like this new chance with this new child, and like, you know, he wants to be super dad and all this kind of stuff. So,
and I think there's something to killing the Pegasus as like, you know, slaughtering innocence or childhood or something like that, that I think is something that affected Cliff, and that Cliff is worried about casting onto the next generations, that now that he has a grandchild. So I thought this was working. Yeah. I thought this was working a lot. Plus, it was just fun. It's funny that he was gutting Pegasus.
He was cleaning it. He was cleaning it.
Yeah.
He was going to eat it because it tastes like chicken, apparently.
I will say I love Pegasus meat.
Dude.
A lot of restaurants have it off menu.
No,
Does Pegasus taste different from unicorn, or is it basically the same thing?
Unicorn's a little sweeter, a lot like more sugar. Pegasus, if you can get your hands on the wing meat, it's really tender.
I like to roll them in some. I have a blend of spices. It's proprietary, so I'm not going to tell you what it is. But,
oh yeah, the Zalman
every Super
mix?
Bowl, big bowl of Pegasus wings.
I don't.
You can't give us a little. Can't give us a couple of the spices in your proprietary.
Okay, one
mix,
of the
Alex?
spices. I'm just going to throw this out here. Cayenne.
Oh wow!
I also
What a
use
shock.
salt and pepper.
Oh my god!
Wow,
Boo.
this does sound like. I mean, I've been traveling a lot lately, and you go through a lot of towns. And you're like, oh, you're not gonna believe this spice mix we have, and it's like paprika. That's what you're bringing to the mix. That's like dust. It's like red dust. Okay, Don's blazing spice mix. Keep your secrets.
Why don't we move on and talk about one of the other characters? We can discuss what's happening with Jane, because I love this storyline. I thought this was wonderful.
This is great. It's Jane talking to her Alex. Who's she talking to?
Don't.
Who's she talking to?
No, let's not.
I can't do it. Frequent listeners of our Riverdale podcast will know there is a character with the same name there, and I, for whatever reason,
Abuela.
cannot pronounce this word.
Yep.
And I came up here. Yeah, there you go. Grandma.
This was such a nice story, and it really, we've seen so much of the horrible side of Jane's sort of childhood and her father. To see this other side of it about someone trying to help Kay escape from that, and then we get the reveal that her abuela crafted all of the personalities.
Yeah.
My first thought, abuela's drawing or making a little chainsaw on them.
Oh yeah.
Abuela's like,
come on.
She seems like such a sweet older woman, and she's like, put a chainsaw on that nun's hand. You got yourself a personality.
Well, I don't know if the implication was she did all of the personalities, but certainly
there's a cabinet of characters.
Full cabinet, yeah.
And he's like, this was Jane.
There's some liberties that happen in heaven. There's a Pegasus in
It's weird that she also knew so much about drilling to have driller, you know, like. Anyways, I think though,
and penny farthing.
Yeah, I think though the kind of really takeaway was that Jane is the strongest was so moving, and so I was just like, oh my god. And you find out she's named after her. It was very touching.
Yeah, it definitely raised some questions for me that I don't think necessarily need to be answered, but questions in terms of how the whole Kay-Jane things worked, because at times it looked like Jane was moving on to the afterlife, but Kay was staying there. So does Jane exist? Does Jane not exist? That's obviously the central question of her character in a certain way, or at least the thing that she's wrestling with most of the time. So again, I don't think there needs to be an answer there, but it raised it in really fascinating and weird ways, which I liked.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and the way that that Jane sort of like got to see her feel these emotions, I thought was really cool.
Yeah. Why don't we move on, talk about Cyborg, because he gets to hang out on a nice hike with his mom, his mommy. What did you think about mommy time, Pete?
Well, don't make it weird.
Daddy.
Yeah, what are you? You're just fucking.
I mean,
can't be a weirdo for 5 seconds.
No, that's. I got to be true to myself, man. Otherwise, I'm never going to move on to the afterlife.
I wish you would. Anyways, I think that this was really very touching. And you want to talk about raise some questions. Like, the mom was straight up like, first off, I don't give a rat's ass what your father says. And I was like, oh, that's hilarious. And then the part where she was like, yeah, your dad made you into a superhero, made me think that, like, oh, maybe some things that are about dad aren't so kind of straightforward and earnest. Like, maybe that accident, maybe involved his dad as well. So I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely an implication there that sort of thing is going on in some way. But, yeah, I don't know. Again, like, I find it difficult to process this episode a little bit, even though, frankly, this is the second time I watched it through, just because watching it from the perspective of, like, can we trust the mom? Is the mom on the level, or is she going to turn into a demon and eat his head at some point?
Right.
So is what they're saying true? Is it what they need to hear to go through the afterlife? It's not made abundantly clear in any particular direction. And I don't think that's a bad thing. Like, I think the ambiguity here is okay, but I think you're right to question what Silas Stone is doing, but whether he was involved more actively in Cyborg's creation, I guess we'll see as the show continues. Why don't we move on then and talk about Rita and what's going on with her?
Rita was killing it this episode. The part where she does the faint, like everybody else like drops down and she's just standing there and does like the acting faint. Oh my God. And was just kind of pretending. I lost it. I mean, that was just such a great Rita moment, like the perfect kind of like only Rita in that moment. It was just it was so enjoyable. So as a classically trained actor, like, how did you feel about that feint like that? I thought it was both hilarious and really well done.
It was great. And as, like you said, as a classically trained actor, you have to work on your feints I spent 7 years working on my feint.
Oh, wow.
And it's, I'll try to do an audio version of it just so we have it. It won't be as visceral as seeing it in person, but it's sort of like,
Wow, that was amazing. For anybody listening, it really looked like Justin fainted just now. That's incredible.
And I was really channeling. I'm awake. I'm awake. That's the thing, and nothing happened. That's how you vanish into the. I actually just turned my heart off for a brief second, and the hardest part is being able to be like, okay, let's get it going
back
again.
up. Yeah.
You are the Laurence Olivier of your day.
Yeah.
Wow. What?
Exactly. Today?
Yeah, of today. Just today. As we're recording this. All the Rita stuff is great. So much fun in this episode. It was a bummer not to see her afterlife, but at the same time, I enjoyed everything that was going on with her. Her appearing in the pancake
see it later.
batter. Yeah, maybe she'll die again. Her appearing in the pancake batter was super fun, as I guess we can sort of segue and talk about the outside stuff a little bit. But great stuff with her. She's always a standout character in every episode. So it's nice getting to see her to have kind of, or at least from a viewer's perspective, have a good time versus dealing with trauma like she's been doing the past couple of episodes.
Her who said like, oh, it's just vomit, and everybody was like, yay, like that whole thing.
Oh, that moment? I mean, jumping forward to the end when they're escaping and the demons.
Well, it was a Rita moment. That's why we were talking about Rita.
Spews this enormous thing of green vomit. And you're like, oh, it's acid or
they're all
something.
Gonna die.
It was just vomit. So funny.
So funny. It's such an unlikely choice. Like, what a weird idea to make this whole thing. It was great. Really
felt very Doom Patrol humor. You know, I felt like it fit perfectly. Like they would get excited about it only being vomit.
Well, this is a total supposition there beyond being a funny moment, but I do wonder if there's something in the writer's room where they were like, how do we get them out of this episode? We have like 5 to 10 pages left. We got to wrap this up. Clearly they're going to attack. And they're like, just have it be vomit, you know? And I think that's such a smart, funny choice. Like we've been saying, I love it when they do stuff like that.
Very fun. And one other, so about Rita, I think it feels like she's setting up to have a big role this season and become a big power player. And I think it's interesting in this episode, she doesn't know what's happening, but she does have the power here. She's the one that stays awake and has to sort of figure it out at least a little bit to communicate with Larry. So I really like how slow they're playing it, but I do want to see it sort of happen in the next episode.
Well, why don't we jump
you're just giving it one app for her to be running shit?
Or you're out.
Yeah,
you're totally out.
Exactly.
Wow.
One app, make it pep, is what I say.
Why don't we jump to the outside of the Afterlife, because there's a lot of stuff to talk about there with Larry. I love seeing Dorothy back. You know, it's only been 2 episodes. Well,
she looked older and happier and like...
I mean, I don't know when she filmed it, but the actress is actually, I think, like 20 or 21 in real life or something like that. So to have her kind of dressed more her age was nice versus the pigtails and everything. And she's just a welcome presence on the show. It seems like she's probably going to be gone for at least a chunk of the season, if not longer. But it was nice to see her back. It was nice to see her in charge. Her delivery when she comes in and Larry says, "How was the burial? Was it amazing?" And she says, "My father's burial? It was fine." Made me laugh out loud.
Yeah.
Just good stuff.
The whole LT thing being like, oh man, seeing this through fresh eyes, I am losing, you know, like him like losing it with the whole like sitting around the table, Dorothy being like,
well, that was another really fun choice. His first reaction being like, well, I'm a mummy. Everybody else should be mummies.
Everybody's mummies.
Just a great, fun, weird visual that doesn't really affect anything in any way.
But you know, also, when you say daddy, mommy, mummy, it's weird. It's dad, mom, and mum. A monster wrapped in bandages is a mum.
Right. And a wolfie baby is the one that scratches you and turns you into another wolfie baby.
Yeah, exactly. A wolfie baby? That's what you say?
A wolfie baby. That's what I call it.
I don't know what's going on anymore, but I really loved LT.
Do you guys like Vampy Wampies? I love Vampy Wampies.
Stop, please stop. When Larry was like, Dorothy, hey, oh God, great to see you. Like, and just how skeeved out she was by him was just very, very enjoyable right from the beginning.
Now, let's talk about the Dead Boy Detective Agency. Justin, you're a big Vertigo fan and their classic Vertigo characters. What did you think about the depiction here in the episode?
I thought it was great. I mean, when I first saw the characters, I was like, are they doing Dead Boy Detectives here? And then they did do that, which was super great. And I thought the depiction was awesome. I like how they did such a great job of like putting out their sort of characters and personalities, and then we get to see them sort of play out. We get to see their interpersonal relationships really well done. Like, it was top to bottom. It was great.
And I also really liked how they tied into Larry's story in a very different way. You know, seeing him over the course of the seasons being so scared of his sexuality and identity, to then be giving advice to these two ghostly kids, I thought was so interesting and so emotionally poignant. Love that scene when they're standing on the river and talking about it in particular. I thought it was really good stuff.
And it couldn't be more over the plate for him to like weigh in, and you could sort of hear it in his performance. I thought he was like, I mean, I gotta say something. I went through a very similar thing and I blew it. So he felt sort of like, I don't usually talk almost at all, but I gotta tell you, you gotta say how you're feeling to your partner here. It was great.
I also really love the whole baseball bat thing. It was funny. We're in the States. I got to have a baseball bat. That was just really funny. And also like the whole kind of like way they kind of were casual about all the craziness that they kind of deal with. I really loved their tone and the kind of like the way they kind of just like were going about it. I just think that I didn't know them before this, so it was kind of like a really cool introduction. I thought it handled really well.
Yeah, honestly, it was good enough that I don't know that they would ever do this, but it felt strong enough to do like a spin-off, honestly.
Spin-off. Let's do it.
Have Dorothy pop in, help them solve mysteries.
They knew the safe word for the sex ghost. It really was like, oh, you just say turnip and then they go away. It's huge.
I feel bad that they now have control over the sex ghosts because I guess we'll see if they actually use it. But it was just fun to see him pop up as a little like mosquito-style annoyance.
Yeah. I also, while we're going through various things in the episode, I really like the design of the creatures in the Tunnel of Souls. And also, I guess the lady was Death, right? Like they were all very, I don't know, Hellraiser to me, the whole thing.
Yeah.
But given that they didn't do much the entire time, it was very funny.
The lady wasn't Death. I think they said she was one of the Death's lieutenants, I think is the line.
They did talk about Lady Death a lot, and that freaked out LT, which was fun.
I think the Death, I would guess it's the classic Vertigo Death. Neil Gaiman's Death is what I would think they were gesturing toward. Because they sort of said Death was cool, it's just her lieutenants are the ones who are psychopaths.
Interesting. What about the dude who saves Rita? There's this, he looks heavily scarred, mysterious dude that Rita doesn't remember. She thinks maybe though she doesn't say this out loud, maybe he met Michelle Gomez's character as Rita. There's another Rita out there somewhere. But what do you think's going on with her?
I thought it was,
excuse me.
I thought it was the other kind of like guy, because it was like that dude who knew Vic, who was kind of there. And then he kind of like tried to stop the other guy with the gun from shooting everybody. So I thought maybe it was him.
I think it's someone from her past. He says this line to her, don't let him see you sweat, which feels like old-timey Hollywood a little bit. So I think we're going to find out that it's someone that actually knew Rita back in the day.
Yeah, that makes sense to me as well. Any other moments from the episode in particular that you want to call out that you thought were interesting or fun or whatever?
Oh, nice. I thought it was weird that Cyborg was like, I love Ronnie still.
Really?
Because I'm like, do you? The whole thing, like, that whole relationship, I don't understand. He seems to be like carrying a torch, but also like not. He sort of cut her off in a pretty harsh way and is like, it just feels like he's in love with the idea of having a girlfriend.
Well, I mean, maybe he's still figuring things out and, how he feels. But, I do think it is because he does say that he's willing to, like, when she's around, the laws and rules that he normally follows do not apply to her. And I think that was kind of like a big reveal that he does care more than he's letting on. And maybe he kind of like has these moments where he's like, no, and shuts her out and pushes her away. But that's not what he really wants,
I think for me, what it depends on is whether she shows up again. Like, if she does not show up again, this feels like, let's move on. Let's get to whatever the next thing is.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. Then I think she will. It seems like this show is smart enough that it feels to me like they're indicating there is more story to tell there. And like we talked about with I think it was the premiere, it was so abrupt, the ending with her in the elevator. There just feels like there's more to say.
I want to talk a little bit about that creepy doll head on the side of the tree, and the only way you can open it is through pain. And because on another show, I was like, oh, this is going to be something dumb or whatever. This isn't, but like the actual pain that we got to see and kind of like live with the character was just awful. And so like, it was so well done in such a creepy, amazing way. I was just really impressed with that. I mean, I was already so like touching a doll head, already enough pain for me where it's like not even.
That's why you don't go in the American Girl store, right?
Oh my God, that would be a nightmare. No, thank you.
My first thought when I saw that scene is, I wonder what Pete's reaction to grabbing a doll head in the woods would be. So I'm glad that we established that. I appreciate it, Pete. Thank you.
Yeah,
well, but what was so scary? What was so scary about what happened? Like, you guys have never done a rock and swim?
I'm sorry?
A rock and swim where you all take turns. It's like a snowball fight, but with rocks, and then you swim.
Pete, you ever be on the other side of that sort of thing?
No, it's not. It's less of a the way I grew up doing it is just sort of a melee. Everyone's just running around throwing rocks.
So you just throw rocks at each other, and then people get hit in the head enough they fall into the water, and then they got to swim.
Then you're swimming.
You lived in a place
except
with
the
no
water's
snow,
too
so
cold.
You had to make your own snowballs, but they were just rocks, right?
That's exactly right. We want to live out the Americana of having a snowball fight, but not enough snow.
I assumed because, you were more of a well person that you were more of the lower, your friend in the bucket and then throw rocks at him. But, all that open space, I thought maybe you were like, what is that about?
When you lower someone in the well, then you throw pennies at them.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Which
Give
are
me
wishes.
Snap. Give me wishes. Snap.
A lot of my wishes were I wish I hit the guy with the penny.
Any other notes from the episode? What do you think's going on? I mean, let's talk about just the cliffhanger here.
Madam Satan?
What do we think's going on with Madam Satan? At the end, she says, good question. Now who would like some tea?
She didn't answer the question.
Yeah.
But she did acknowledge it was a good question. I mean, who is this lady?
I think the Rita's power set is like a legacy type power. And I think Michelle Gomez is like an earlier version of whatever Rita is.
Whoa.
Interesting.
That's a heck of a... Did you watch ahead? How did you pull that out of your shorts?
I never watch ahead. I have a lot in my shorts.
I still do have a couple of episodes. Actually, I think literally a couple of episodes. I only think I've seen maybe 2 more at this point. So I won't weigh in on this. The one last thing that I did want to mention, though, is Cliff and Jane connecting in a really way at the end of the episode, which has been a long time coming, where they basically agree they need help figuring out how to live now that they're alive again. And I thought this is really wonderful. I'm excited to see less Cliff being like, please, I want to be your father surrogate figure, and her being like, get the fuck away from me, and instead moving forward into whatever the next stage of their relationship would be. That's going to be cool to see.
Yeah, that was huge steps on both of their parts. And then Dorothy was like, peace, losers, I'm going to hang with the cool kids.
Yeah, Dorothy out.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say just one line to shout out Cliff insulting, what are you doing, Harry Potter and all that stuff.
Yeah.
When you're coming up from being dead, you got to have some zingers on lock. And Cliff certainly did.
And it was kind of crazy how they immediately went to they were like, no, don't hurt them. Like they'd murdered. They had the heads of the freaking, the Doom Patrol does not play around, they're not out there with baseball bats just trying to get by. They're fucking shit up. So it was kind of I like that just kind of the difference between how they do things versus the Doom Patrol. Damn it, I forgot about the other part I wanted to talk about. Somebody else say something while I look at my notes.
Well, I'll start to wrap up, and then you'll cut me off and say, I remember. So before we wrap up here, why don't we talk about who is most doomed in this episode? Yes. Oh, you remember now, Pete? Go ahead.
Danny the ambulance. We got to see Danny.
Yes,
Danny was a huge part. And and the fact that Danny okayed these guys to kind of bring them in was a cool way of crossing the worlds. And also at first I was like, Danny, why are you in ambulance? It seems like, people need you, but coming through huge still part of the team, making me happy to see Danny still around.
Absolutely. So, Justin, who was most doomed this episode?
I mean, despite the fact that he was one of the only main characters who didn't die, LT is struggling. He's been struggling a long time. He needs his negative spirit back. He's not getting better. As everyone else improved in this episode, Larry got worse.
I'm going to throw it out to Rita. I don't know if this is exactly right. Well, but I do think there's a lot of stuff going on with her that we don't quite understand yet, from why Michelle Gomez is taking her face to who that mysterious man was in the afterlife. So there's some secrets there that are going to come out eventually, and they may be good for her or they may not be good, but we'll have to see. Pete, what about you? Who do you think was most doomed?
Niles, suck it, you dead.
Oh, well, wow. Literally celebrating dance.
Oh, man. I think he's doing the groundhog dance from the end of Caddyshack.
I'm just doing my Cliff, I'm a robot dance.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Again, Pete, you are Cliff, and you do wear graphic tees.
That's right.
And also, the sex ghosts are also doomed because turnip.
Turn up. If you would like to support our podcast, patreon.com/Comic Book Club. Also, we do a live show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. to Crowdcast and YouTube. Come hang out. We would love to chat with you about Doom Patrol, iTunes, Android, Spotify, Stitcher, or the app of your choice to subscribe, listen, and follow the show at Comic Book Live on Twitter, comicbookclublive.com for this podcast, and many more. And now, before we wrap up, a piece of advice from Pete LePage.
Take it from Rita. Sometimes just pretend to die, don't actually die. We would miss you.
Wow, I'm so overwhelmed by that advice. I'm.
Are you all right?
Acting.
Wow.
Acting.
Wow, that was great.
Just really impressive. Yeah, just well done, sir.